Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we are looking at another standard deck. This time it's going to be Gallade Octillery. It's a pretty fun pet deck that I've been playing around with for a bit of a while now, and I like to keep coming back to this deck because there is such a powerful draw engine here, using Premonition, one of the best cards we have in the game, with Gallade, and combining it with Octillery to try and get maximum value out of it. And with the new set brings Puzzle of Time, and Puzzle of Time is a fantastic introduction to this deck because we can spam some very important cards like Double Colorless Energy, Focus Sash, even Target Whistle can be respammed. So there's plenty of options for Gallade Octillery, and with such a powerful draw engine we can get into double puzzle, manipulate our own hand very nicely to get these puzzles going. And as you can see, we're playing no discard supporters, so we are always getting the 4 puzzles used as long as they're not prized, so that's pretty awesome. So let's get on to the deck. First of all, we have a 4-1 for Gallade line. Oftentimes I have opted for a 4-2-4 line, but because the nature of Trainer Lock and the way we're trying to manage those matchups, namely we're going to try and use Jirachi to get rid of Seismitoad's energy, and if it's Vespiquen and Vileplume, we're going to energy deny them with Jirachi as well. It's only really Trevenant which causes us issue, but we do have the 4-1-4 line, so I'm very happy with just the single Curlier. We can rely on the 4 Rare Candy. Bear in mind, of course, we can also use Puzzle to get back Rare Candy as well, so I'm very happy with the 4-1-4 line. Unfortunately, there are no fighting type Ralts or Curlier. Of course, in the games it wouldn't make sense because they're Psychic and Fairy, right? So we have the Fairy ones. These are the better options because they resist Dark, so thumbs up for that. But yeah, 60 HP, 90 HP, just pretty simple stuff. It's all about the Gallade. Unfortunately, PTCGO is not letting me select these Pokemon, but Gallade has 150 HP, which is fantastic for a stage 2. Obviously, he's a fighting type, so we can use Focus Sash, absolutely phenomenal. It's the main sort of function of the deck overall, to be honest. Focus Sash is fantastic on this card. And his attack is Sensitive Blade. It does 60 damage base, but 70 more if you use a supporter during your turn. And when you have Premonition and Abyss Hand helping us out, we're pretty much never going to miss our own supporter. So we can imagine this is basically a base of 130 damage. And that starts ringing alarm bells straight away that we can one-hit KO Shaymin EXs even with their resistance. So we're going to try and manipulate that as best we can. By spamming Lysander and also using Target Whistle to recover Shaymins, Lysander them up all over again to get one-hit KOs, just like how Night March does it basically these days. It's a very powerful combo to race for prizes when we have a Focus Sash non-EX taking 2 prizes a turn. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, for just double Colorless Energy we can deal with Shaymins and 2-shot regular EXs as well. Bear in mind that is still a fantastic approach, just 2 hitting into something when you have a Sash on board. It's a 2-for-1 exchange, and sometimes even then it's not a 2-for-1 because we've hit once, they've hit back, we kill, then they still have to attack again, so it's like a 1.5 trade because then we can send up a new attacker and start dealing with an EX all over again. So Focus Sash really does enable this. It forces stuff like Xerosic to be played, and people can't play those every turn when they're trying to deal with Gallades, so absolutely fantastic. His ability is Premonition. We are allowed to look at the top 5 cards of our deck and rearrange them however we like. This is combining with the 2-2 Octillery line that we have. Quick note, we are playing one of each of the Remoraid. One has the attack which discards a Stadium in play, the other has an attack which switches itself to the bench. Both for Colorless Energies, same HP, same retreat cost, so that's not a big deal. I guess it gives us a bit more versatility. Play the one you prefer if you wish, but I like a 1-1 just because there might be a situation when the other one is preferable. But yeah, a 2 retreat cost on the Octillery. 90 HP means it's levelable searchable. You can see we can play a lot of those cards. And he has the Abyss Hand ability. The only reason we play Octillery is the Abyss Hand. We get to draw until our hand is 5 cards. So by using Premonition, we look at the top decks, we see what we want, and then we use Octillery to draw into the cards that we want. Pretty simple combo, and we're going to try and spam this every turn. The 2-2 line I think is appropriate. It's a very important thing to get out, and prizing pieces kind of stinks, so we want the 2-2 count. So the other Pokemon we're playing, a single Hawlucha. He's a free retreater for the deck, which is a big bonus because both Gallade and Octillery have a 2 retreat cost, which is kind of chunky. So having that option to send into the active position is pretty nice. Most of the time, though, we know what we're going to be attacking with, because not only do we know our hand, we most of the time know our top deck as well, so it's not like we can be surprised and be like, oh cool, I hit a switch. You'll be like, well, I know that's a switch, I'll use it. So it's not like having a free retreater in any other deck, because sometimes you just use your free retreater because you don't know your entire hand yet, until you take your top deck and think, okay, I can do something with this card I've just picked up. With Gallade Octillery, you actually pretty much know. But either way, Hawlucha gives us the options to just send him up in the active position. He's also pretty good for, again, helping us out get these 2 shots. His Flying Press attack does 60 to EX Pokemon. So with the 130 from Gallade and 60 more from Hawlucha, that can oftentimes get us knockouts. Again, he can abuse Focus Sash, which is fantastic. And he does hit through resistance. It's a bit of a big deal. A bit of an issue in this deck is dealing with stuff like Baby Yveltal. We hit 130, but they of course resist. You can see we have a Muscle Band and a Giovanni to try and help us out there. So Hawlucha is also able to hit through resistance, which is nice. Just a cheeky one of, we can Karina search it, and because we have 4 Karina, oftentimes we're not needing Gallade each turn. So instead just getting a Hawlucha target, which can be an insta play onto the bench, is kind of handy. So I like playing one of him. We are then playing 2 Jirachi promo. This is a bit of a meta call because Vespiquen Vileplume is getting pretty popular, and so is Straight Seismitoad. It's kind of overtaking Toadtina in popularity, at least in Europe, because it just has so many disruptive sort of cards at its disposal that it's just beating other Toadtina players. So then those Toadtina players have to play the straight Toad build, and you know, you don't want to lose to other Toad decks, I guess, so you have to play straight Toad basically. And Jirachi really punishes that because it really limits them into the amount of times they can use Quaking Punch. And if they don't use Quaking Punch on certain turns, it means we can get Candy Gallade. Not even to attack with Gallade, sometimes we just want him so that we can Premonition, guarantee ourselves more energy, so that we can keep using Stardust, because it's very powerful against those 2 decks, which is fantastic. It's also very, very good against Night March. Of course, they're probably just going to Lysander around stuff anyway, but we are a full non-EX deck, so it's going to be very difficult for them to physically take 6 prizes if they are being hit with Jirachi each turn to get rid of their energy. Bear in mind now they do play Puzzle, so potentially they can use a full 8 DCE, which normally will get them the win, but bear in mind as well, we're also having Focus Sash on our dudes, so sometimes we can have our bench full of Focus Sashed guys, so even if they are going to use a Lysander, they can't even kill the thing, they just pop a Sash instead. So with the combination of a high Sash count, 2 Jirachi, and that we can race just by killing them with our Gallades sometimes, I think we have a fairly okay Night March. I wouldn't say more than 50-50 because they do have the things to beat us, but I think having 2 Jirachi promo gives us the best chance at beating Night March, because we can just Sash Gallades and go for the 2 prize knockouts like they do against us, and go for the whistle plays, so we can try and race in that regard. But not only do they also need DCE, another Night Marcher, stuff like that, they also need to pop the Sash, or they need to get around Jirachi. So our Lysander KOs are getting 2 prizes. If they're using Lysander or Zerosic, they're only taking 1 prize. So that's the sort of trade we go for. So there we are. It gives us a strong Toad, a strong Vespi-Vile, and a strong Night March, so it's a great 2-of to play. I really like playing 2 of Jirachi in a lot of decks at the moment because of those exact reasons. So let's look at the items. 1 Super Rod to recover our dudes. We do have Puzzle, so oftentimes I'm happier playing this than something like Sacred Ash, because if we're playing the Rod and we have additional potential recovery, I think we're safe. Also, the Rod can get back our basic energy, and we do play a low count. But bear in mind, Puzzle is oftentimes going to be getting back extra DCE. So the 1 Rod, I think, is sufficient. We are playing 1 Switch, combining it with 1 Floatstone. Previously, I just played a couple of Floatstone, but now that we have Puzzle, it's just like a more searchable thing, just to insta-play the Switch, and then we have access to it later. I quite like having Switch in here. 1 Target Whistle is a very big card in the deck. We try and win games by dealing with Shaman quite often and finishing games a little bit faster, by going Whistle Lysander game, pretty much. So it's a great one-off to have in here. Really punishes people playing Shaman, and pretty much every deck plays Shaman right now, other than stuff like this deck, and I guess Greninja can sometimes play without Shamans. Greninja is by far our hardest matchup, to be honest, but there we go. We are playing 2 Ultra Ball. Although we have a lot of level ball searchable cards, you can see we have the higher count of level ball here, because it gets Hawlucha, Ralts, Kirlia, Jirachi, Remoraid, and Octillery. Everything but Gallade, and Gallade is searchable via Karina. So Ultra Ball does seem fairly redundant, but the biggest effect that Ultra Ball has is to discard 2 from hand. It can be at times a -3 from hand if we choose not to take a target, or if the target we take from Ultra Ball is an insta-play Pokemon, i.e. we can put it on the bench or we can evolve into it. And that's fantastic because we're using Gallade and Octillery. So we reset our top decks by using this Ultra Ball, by discarding clunky cards that we might not need. Say it's turn 5 or 6 and we've got a Bridget that we just don't want to play. We can just Ultra Ball that away so that we can draw into better cards that we want after we use Premonition and then Abyss Hand into them. So Ultra Balls are fantastic for lowering the hand of Clunk and getting us into more combo pieces basically from then on. So Ultra Ball is fantastic for that. And of course, early turns, it's super important to get turn 1 Ralts is down, turn 1 Remoraids, and turn 2 it's super important to get Octillery and Gallade pieces out. So having a lot of search cards in here is very vital. So I like the 2 Ultra Ball. I've kind of covered the level ball at the same time. It's a great target with Karina turn 1. It's like a half Bridget, or I guess 2/3 of a Bridget by going Karina for Hawlucha and like a Ralts or a Remoraid, depending on what we need, what we started with, stuff like that. But in the early turns, Bridget is our best supporter. Before I get onto that, let's talk about the rest of the items. 4 Puzzle is a huge card. Like I was saying, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to retry out this deck. One of the issues I struggled with Gallade Octillery was when you miss DCE, it's very, very hard to win games. So Puzzle gives us pseudo outs into DCE if we've seen them earlier in the game. And at the same time, it gets us extra rare candies, extra Gallades, extra focus sashes. It just gets the things we need to spam at the right time, basically. So it's a fantastic card in here. I really, really do enjoy playing the Puzzle build of Gallade Octillery. And it means we can skimp out on cards, like have a really low energy count. I wouldn't go lower than this just because of Trainer Lock. Like, I need to have energy for Jirachi, basically. That's the main reason why I have a 7 energy count. Otherwise, I'd be happy to go to just 4 DCE. But you just want to have access to them against Toad, basically. You don't mind spending DCE to deal with their DCE either. That's normally fine, because once we stop their Quaking Punch, then we can puzzle back our DCE anyway. So there we go. Where was I? Yeah, Puzzle is great. 4 Candy, pretty obvious. We want to get into Gallade. Karina searches out Candy and Gallade. That's a big wombo combo, and it's fantastic. Super important because we're playing just 1 Kirlia. 4 VS Seeker, it's super important to keep using supporters every turn because Sensitive Blade's damage output is varied because of supporters. So we need to do that higher count, and obviously it's going to get us into different things. Can you continue to use Karina for search cards, continue to use Bridget or whatever these one-offs are. Keep getting back Lysander to spam Shaman. Pretty good stuff there. So let's look at these supporters. 1 Judge is pretty nice. Again, it can be one of these things that resets if we've got a clunky hand. Then we can use Premonition, hopefully, and then use Abyss Hand into an extra card that we need to try and do something that turn, which is nice. At the same time, disrupting our opponent. We are playing 1 Hex Maniac. It's one kind of cool thing to deal with Trevenant. Also helps us deal with Greninja. Those are 2 very awkward matchups. And I'm not certain that 1 Hex is going to be enough to help you out, but at times it's going to be a very nice out for you. And with Puzzles and VS Seekers, we can actually spam Hex Maniac quite a few times, especially if you puzzle for VS Seeker and Hex. You get a lot of uses of Hex against the Greninja deck, and oftentimes they're not using their own Hex. They can choose to use Shadow Stitching, which is pretty bad for you because they have Premonition plus... It gets rid of our Premonition plus Abyss Hand, so that's kind of the biggest issue. But their damage is way lower, of course, if they're not using their snipes. So just continuing to use Hex is super important for us in that matchup. And of course, Trevenant buying us a turn of trainers is going to be fantastic. we really struggle against Trev. We have weakness to Trev, and they resist us, so very awkward all round, to be honest. I really don't see this deck beating Trevenant. But fortunately, it's way worse in Standard than it is in Expanded, so just hope to not play them, I guess. Then our last one of is going to be Giovanni's Scheme. Giovanni allows us to do an extra 20 damage, of course. So our Sensitive Blade then goes up to 150, and if you combine this with Muscle Band, we can hit 170, and that's a magic number, as we all know. Again, it's pretty big for Greninja, pretty big for just most EXs, to be honest, so hitting that 170 can be nice. And again, it's that 2-for-1 scenario where we've just dealt with something and they have to deal with a high HP non-EX that sometimes has Sash on, so very good stuff, to be honest. Our 2 of is Lysander. It's important enough to play 2 because oftentimes we need to kill Shamans to win the game. Pretty simple stuff. 4 Karina is our most powerful supporter, I would say. Just for the longevity of the game, you want to keep getting Candy Gallade, you want to keep getting these one-offs, get into Target Whistle, get into Focus Sash. All of these cards are very, very important for us. Karina really helps us tick along, thin the deck, get into puzzle pieces as well. It can insta-search one puzzle, so if you have one puzzle already in hand, or if you have a Premonition plus Abyss hand to go, like during your turn, you can use the Karina to search, reset the top decks, and then Premonition Abyss hand, hope to hit the last puzzle. That can be pretty handy for you. So Karina, absolutely fantastic. And then we are playing 3 Bridget. I wish I could play 4 because the deck really does love starting Bridget. It's just a fantastic board state to have. If you've started a Ralts, you could go 2 more, or 1 Ralts and 2 more Remoraid, or you could just go 3 Ralts and a Remoraid. That's often the decision you have to make depending on how aggressive your opponent's first turn start was or how aggressive their deck is. It's really important to get at least 1 Remoraid down. If you can help it, like if you have Bridget plus Level Ball and you have more ways to search next turn, getting 2 Remoraid down is super important because if they do Lysander Remoraid, it's way worse than if they kill a Ralts, I think. Just because you need that Abyss hand to keep going, really. The Remoraid is really the star player in the deck while you're still setting up, because Premonition's good, but it's not going to help you immediately, whereas Abyss hand is pretty much always going to help you immediately on turn 2. So Bridget is great for just getting a bunch of Pokemon down. Oftentimes you need at least 1 Remoraid. Like I say, if you think it's a matchup where you can get away with it, go double Remoraid and double Ralts, I guess. So there we go. I would never have 2 Remoraid and just 1 Ralts on the field. Bear that in mind. You need to have at least 2 Ralts, but then sometimes there are matchups where you don't need the 3rd Ralt straight away. You can just go for 2 Remoraid instead. So start playing around that as you will. Also, having these Bridgets gives us a decent matchup against these Trainer Lock decks, like I was saying. So we have Karinas that can help search out stuff like Hawlucha and other stuff, thin the deck of items even if we can't play them. But Bridget is really the star player against Item Lock. Vespiquen Vileplume will absolutely cringe if they see a turn 1 Bridget, because not only have their plans been foiled in terms of trying to bench us out in the first turn, but we've probably gone for Hawlucha double Jirachi, and it's the same thing we'll go for against Seismitoad, because we can just go into Jirachi, Stardust, and then they miss a turn of attacking. We pay retreat out of Jirachi, go into Hawlucha, who is a free retreater, so it means that if they're going to try to deal with us, we can just go straight back into Jirachi at any point. So even if they're going to put DC onto the bench and just do nothing for a bit, we can just Lysander into them and even use Stardust then. So really fantastic. Bridget gives us these outs against these Item Lock decks, and even though it's a stage 2 deck, we seem to have a favourable Trainer Lock matchup against everything but Trev, so that's absolutely brilliant. There we go. Onto the tools. 1 Floatstone. I feel like I'm comfortable with 1 just because of puzzle, and we have the switching card anyway, so pretty good stuff. Oftentimes it's thrown onto Octillery as an extra free retreat option if we have been stalled out, pretty much. The 3 Focus Sash is one of the biggest parts of the entire deck. Put them onto Gallade so that we can tank hits. A lot of things are playing Xerosic, a few things are playing Megaphone, so It's not quite as strong as it used to be, but just forcing your opponent to have those cards at the right time, even if just one or two really come off in a matchup, that's normally enough really to skew the prize trade in your favor. So that's pretty awesome. And like I say, the one muscle band is super important. It's big for dealing with baby Yveltal. Bear in mind that the Fright Knight muscle band is not a plus of any damage. That's why we have to play Giovanni additionally. But playing the combo of muscle band and Giovanni means that we can hit 170 through a lot of EX Pokemon, which is pretty strong. So yeah, muscle band pretty strong for that. Anything else? No, not really. I guess Crobat. Anything that would just push us over the edge. I guess stuff like Garchomp and other Gallade Pokemon, I guess, if we're up against Yveltal, Zoroark, Gallade. Responding a Gallade is kind of cool, so Muscle Band allows that. Finally, the energy. 4 DC is the lifeblood of the deck, really. The 3 fighting, extra things for Jirachi, extra things for Hawlucha, I guess, and just pay retreat in the early turns if we need to move out of Jirachi or protect Ralts, send up something like Hawlucha in the early turns. Can be pretty important, and we don't really want to spend DCE to do that. So fighting energy is good. And like I say, against non-EX matchups, we want to have more access, more total energy to play with. So that's pretty important. Also having 3 energy, basic energy allows us to play around Giratina slightly better. Giratina can't one-hit Gallade, so oftentimes we have the time to go for these energy. But like I was saying earlier, talking about Jirachi, the Giratina builds are way less popular than they used to be, so we don't really have to worry about that, which is why we get away with a slightly cheekier energy line. So let me save this up. I'm pretty sure I had it saved anyway, but and we'll get into a game. Pretty good deck. Hopefully we can get the dream set up and really show off the power of this deck. So we're up against Zexy Tololol, or Tolol, I guess. Taking a while to load. Hopefully I have connection. This could be kind of awkward. Hopefully it all figures itself out in a moment. I don't think it's on my end. Let me just check my internet. Yeah, my end seems fine. Okay, it started to load. So our opponent is calling the coin flip. And we win the flip, so we get to go first. Always nice for evolution decks to go first. Let's see if we can get the turn 1 Bridget. No basic Pokemon. We do reveal what we are. He might not even know what this deck is after seeing this sort of stuff. Grenade Octillery is a bit of a rogue concept, picked up by a few players. So he might not know what he's up against here. Do start Bridget and we get a Pokemon, so this is pretty much the dream start. We have Level Ball for a Pokemon as well for next turn, so this is pretty epic. The only thing we would need is like a Karina. Oh, wow. That is a dream hand. Looks like we're up against Gengar Frostlass, which is probably okay. Not an ideal matchup for us. But as long as he plays Shaman, we should be fine, to be honest. He can get around Focus Sash quite nicely, which is also a pain, because of course we have weakness. It looks like we've prized our Target Whistle, which is a bit of a worry. Oh no, it is there. It is there. Okay, so just hope that he plays down Shamans. There are certain games that go like that, which is kind of awkward. I think I am going to play down this DCE, although Gengar can sometimes play Energy Disruption. My reason being I'm going to Candy Gallade next turn, and I want to have extra cards from Abyss hand. Let's do it. We could get punished, but we already have another DCE in hand. And like I say, with Puzzle, we can be a bit more liberal with these energies. And if we go through EX Pokemon, we rarely need like a full 8 DCE anyway. Fury Belt onto Gengar's a pain. It means now we can't even... I guess we would have to Lysander at the same time as Thingy anyway, so we couldn't use Muscle Band Giovanni regardless, so it doesn't actually affect that much. It's just kind of annoying. And we see a turn 1 Night Attack, placing 3 counters onto this Ralts over here. I'm actually hit rare candy, so what can this get me? I guess it could go for a second level ball. It could even go for Ultra Ball. I think second level ball's fine though. Oh, actually I could get Float Stone. This is more important, for sure. So we will go level ball now. There's Octillery. We'll play it onto the active because that's the better target for the Float Stone. We'll Candy Gallade, even though this is the damage one, we want to protect our double colourless a little bit. Might play down Sash just to play it. We can attach the energy just to play that. I guess we'll Sash this one, right? And then we can Premonition. Bridget's not bad. Hex is good. Oh, Hex is going to help us get around Frostlass, which is nice. I think we want everything but the VS Seeker for now, because we already have VS Seeker. So that's pretty fine. Good stuff there. We have Ultra Ball if I wish to reset these top decks. And I could go for Curlier. I think that's fine. Muscle Man's not going to be relevant here. So I think Curlier is the play. Got rid of Bridget, but I could always VS Seeker that back. Definitely if he kills this Gallade next turn, I want to definitely go for Bridget because I can get lots of Rolts back. So, Sensitive Blade, putting a bit of early pressure on this Gengar, does get it into range of a Lysander KO, so that's good to be aware of. DC onto this Gengar, so he's getting a KO this turn, going into this Frostlass with the Drag-Along ability. So if this Pokemon is knocked out, flip a coin. If heads, the attacking Pokemon is also knocked out. So it's the same ability that it was Fainting Spell on the old Gengar way back when in Stormfront. If only this was a more playable Pokemon, this could have seen a lot of play. But thanks to things like Hex Maniac, it's a way less scary ability these days. But here is the Dark Corridor. We do die, of course, thanks to weakness. And he actually chooses to go into Robo-Sub instead of the Frostlass. Interesting. Don't really know why. So, here it's going to have to be a Karina rather than Bridget. So I can't Lysander this turn. Or I go Bridget, set up the board, because I don't really want to just play down a Gallade that's going to die anyway. There's no point in me using breaking the Robo-Sub just to sacrifice a Gallade. So instead we'll just go Bridget and play a bit slower here. And go for a blind Abyss hand. So I'm going to go for double Rolts and Hawlucha, I think. Hawlucha being the best target to feed our opponent. We can play down an energy. It's a shame that Hawlucha can't deal with even a Robo-Sub. We could discard his Stadium, but he's already got DC on anyway, so it's highly irrelevant. I'll start attaching to a Rolts just in case we get into another basic energy next turn, or off this Abyss hand even. We hit double Puzzle from a blind Octillery. That's pretty cool. I think I'll hold for now, because again, he could go for a Lysander. It would most likely come here. So if I puzzle now, get Gallade, it's kind of a shame. So rather than doing that, I'll keep double puzzle, so we could go for like Candy Gallade next turn. So we're not in bad shape here, to be honest. We need to start hitting Lysander, but that's about it. Our opponent has played down Shaymin EX as well, which is always good to see for us. We see a Sycamore, so no Lysander this turn. He has to kill his robot if he wants to take a single prize, which I think he'll do. Yeah, we do see that Robo kill itself. That's why I was surprised I didn't see Frostlass there. So the dream top deck is Lysander. We will have Premonitions to try and get into it though, so it's more than one top deck chance. Oh, wow. We can get double Gallades going. This is so cool. Okay. So we do this. We're going to puzzle for Gallade Candy. And this is why puzzle's so sick. Candy Gallade. Gallade. So hopefully we have a Lysander in the top 5 cards here. Ugh, no Lysander. Okay. How can I draw more cards this turn? I can't, which is a bit of a shame. Okay, so okay. Actually, I definitely want to take Jirachi, because that can be our next sacrificial pawn. We'll take those things. That's all fine. We will Abyss Hand. Play down Jirachi. We'll use this Premonition now and see if there's a Lysander here. Oh, there is. Okay, that's cool. That means we can hold the hand and not play Judge or anything this turn. Because it means we've got a guaranteed KO next turn. As long as he doesn't Lysander something and get like Enhanced Hammer at the same time. So, do I play the Hex just to get an extra top deck next turn? We're getting Lysander, then VS Seeker. I think those are all the things we need. Like, we get into Karina. I think this is more relevant to keep just around Frostlass. So we'll hold. I think we're absolutely fine here. We should be fine. He's getting more Frostlass developed. But again, I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to ignore it, basically. The one thing he's not been able to do is develop another Gengar. And that's really the problem with Gengar, and always has been. If he's oh, here is his second Gengar. Starting to get energy on it, so completely rendering my point useless. He's going to have to kill another robot here if he wants this single prize. I think he has to take this option. But he might choose not to. Definitely an interesting decision for our opponent. I think he has to keep racing. He can't just let us keep having these abilities. Because even though like it just so happens that we have it this turn, just giving us extra turns to find the combo is going to be really bad for him. So I think this is correct, that he just has to kill his robots and go into Gengar here. He's going to go into Frostlass, but it does not matter to us. So Jirachi actually tanked the hit, but is going to die to poison. So we will go into... There's no reason not to go into Gallade. We know it's a Lysander on the top. So we can just pretty much swag Lysander. Attach an energy. Go for this Abyss Hand. Get VS Seeker and Karina, I think. Or Level Ball. I can't remember. Yeah, Level Ball. We'll reset those top decks. Do I want to take this? No, I don't. Premonition. So we have VS Seeker for Lysander next turn. We'll now grab Whistle because that's an important card. Is it going to be important? Yes, it will be. It will be important for sure. So, Sensitive Blade will finish off this Gengar. And we should be in fairly good shape. Ah, more Lysander stuffs. So now it's going to be kill Shaman, Whistle, kill Shaman. It's just if we can set up a Gallade in those turns. If not, it could be kind of awkward for us. This is the thing. Gengar's a horrible matchup for us because it gets around Sash. Otherwise, we'd be laughing at this point. You see Megaphone regardless, but that's not a big deal. There's no way he misses energy here. If he misses energy, we win the game, I think. He might have to be digging for another... Oh, wow, he had DCE, but probably not Psychic Energy. He might dig for another Shaman here. Wow, fail search. Oh, he already had a Shaman. Okay. Yeah, he definitely needs Psychic Energy this turn. He put a bunch back with Super Odds, so... There's Fury Belt. There's Mail. Still not playing an energy down. Have we luck sacked our way? No way. No way did he miss energy. That's so brutal for him. I actually feel like we could have been in a losing spot there. But now... I guess we take this one. Because it's more likely to Sky Return. Now we should be fine. I guess we can Premonition. Nothing's really changed. But I'll switch up the top decks regardless. Sensitive Blade, we win. He literally has to pick up this Shaman and get the Shaman in the discard pile out of the discard pile all next turn. Oh, we would have won anyway had he got the energy, I think. So he would have killed this. We come in, respond. Off of those prizes, we got Candy Gallade, so we could have still Lysander killed Shaman based on our prizes. But I was not to know that. So finally he does hit an energy off a Tails on a Birch Flip. But super unlucky from our opponent. But we would have won anyway. And I'm confident in saying that based off of our prizes that we picked up. And that's a shame for him. So there is Gallade going down. And now it's Gallade doing Gallade things. Lysandering Shamans for game. Just Gallade things. And one of the most awkward matchups I could have thought of was actually a Gengar. And we were able to overcome it. So that's pretty good for us. And we got to showcase the puzzles doing the work. Lysander tricks working. We didn't have to show off the target whistle, unfortunately, but there we are. So we played a weird rogue, but it was a rogue that could have caused us a lot of issue because it could break sashes quite comfortably. But because he benched Shamans, which most decks have to do, it made it very easy for us to win the game. So there we go, guys. Gallade Octillery, updated with the new Puzzle of Times, is a very dangerous deck, and it has decent matchups around most of the board. Yveltal is not the easiest matchup, and that's probably the biggest hiccup for us, other than Trevenant. Greninja can also be an issue, but I've had wins and losses against Greninja. Oftentimes I do win against Yveltal anyway, just because they need to play down Shaman. So all these things can pose threats, but we just sweep wins from under the carpet because we have Whistle and Lysander, and that's often how Gallade tries to take these wins. So test the deck, try it out yourselves, it's a lot of fun. Great draw engine, and it needs no Shamans, so it's nice and budget. So hope you all enjoyed. It's been Joe from OmniPoke, and I'll see you guys next time.